capital to discuss the death of the Hamas leader and its regional and international implications. Mr. Rana, welcome to A News once again. Thank you so much for joining us in this important day. So, given the long-standing animosity between Israel and Iran, how do you foresee the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran affecting future diplomatic or military engagements between these two nations? Let's start by that.
I think to begin with, we have to look at the internal picture that has developed in Iran. It's a complete intelligence failure. It's a complete intelligence failure. He should have been protected. He was given residence near a veteran military building. And I think it was a leakage of the intelligence which led to his assassination. Now, in a broader picture, since Iran's sovereignty has been breached by the apartheid state of Israel, it seems that now Iran is left with no option but to retaliate. But the bigger question is, at what level Iran would retaliate? What would be the scope of the retaliation? How different it would be to the retaliation that Iran had in April this year, when there was an attack on the Iranian diplomatic installations, in which several generals and senior officials were killed in Syria. And then there was a huge response from Iran, as a result of which more than 300 drones were sent to Israel for the attack. So that was though symbolic. But now we have to see, will there be repetition of the similar retaliation, or its scope is going to be limited? Will Iran retaliate against Israel in its occupied soil, or will Iran target Israel's interest elsewhere in the world? So these are basically questions everybody is raising. Nobody knows what is going to be the strategy of Iran. But remember, at this point of time, as we speak, there could be a miscalculation on the geostrategic chessboard, both by Iran and both by also the apartheid state of Israel. Israel has already intensified, accelerated its attacks on the Lebanon, sovereign Lebanon territories. And I think this could also be possible expansion, because Netanyahu has been struggling hard right from the day one to create conditions where Iran could be attacked by Israel and then it would be supported by the US. And I think once again, he has created that situation at a time when this so-called cease agreement was being finalized, at a time when Hamas had almost accepted most of the conditions laid down by Israel. And it was an agreement that was likely to happen, but it was a deceptive game that Netanyahu was playing. And I think as a result of that deceptive game, we have seen now that Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas leader, has been assassinated in Tehran, and nobody is going to trust Israel now. Both Egypt, Qatar, who were mediators, and also it may be a setback for the Americans, but I think Americans are in league with the Israel. They may publicly say something against Israel on this particular issue, but I think behind the scene they are very much colluding with the apartheid state.
Considering Haniyeh was a significant figure in Hamas, what might be the immediate and long-term impacts on Hamas leadership structure and its operation in Gaza following his assassination? Then I will go back to what you explained about the international relations as well, but I wonder about this one too much.
Well, Hamas, unlike other organizational structure, it is an ideological organization, where death is something which is celebrated as martyrdom. And they believe that they are moving from transferring themselves to another world, and seeking martyrdom has been the mission of every member of Hamas. So I think in that context, his assassination would be seen within the ranks and files of Hamas, and there is no breadth of leadership within the Hamas. Khalil Al-Hayya could be the next man who may replace him. Khalid Mashal could also replace him. I don't think there is any problem. And more importantly, I think Ismail Haniyeh was perceived to be a very moderate person, very pragmatic person. He was the one who was actually leading the negotiations. Now, with his departure, I think everything has turned turtle. And the table has been turned onto the Hamas, and Hamas is going to respond back. And remember, Yahya Sinwar is still in Gaza. He is actively launching the military operation against apartheid state of Israel. So the death, the martyrdom, and the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh is not going to be as big setback for Hamas as Israel may try to project itself.
So about the international relations, then we should expect the same or not? I mean, the moves that is going to be taken, it is not going to lead up to a so-called quote-unquote war between anyone, is it?
Well, at this particular point of time, Iran doesn't want to expand this war. So Iran will have to retaliate. Will that retaliation be calculated, or it will be like the previous one, as we have seen in April? But I think right now the problem for the Europe and USA is how to handle Netanyahu, because Netanyahu wants to expand this war. He wants to continue this war. Reason being is the day this ceasefire agreement it comes into action, that means there will be more and more questions inside Israel about the conduct of Netanyahu, because this was completely intelligence failure on October 7 when Hamas had attacked apartheid state. And then there was intelligence which was ignored. And also militarily, his regime failed to basically resist that attack. It was a worst ever attack in the history of apartheid state. So in that context, he will have to leave his office of the prime minister. And then there are also additionally corruption charges against him. Therefore, he wants to expand this war also for this reason, but he has also a long-held agenda, political agenda, to somehow or the other engage Americans in a possible war against Tehran, because Israel believes that Iran is the only major threat right now for the Israel. Other Arab countries, and somehow or the other, they've been compromised. They would not go any public statement of condemnation against Israel, and they have good relation behind the scene with the apartheid state.
And let's talk about the timing of the situation. How significant is the timing, Haniyeh's assassination occurring during Iran's presidential inauguration? And what message might this be to send both Iranian leadership and the international community about Israel's strategic intentions?
I think Iran was feeling very comfortable, very confident after its retaliatory attack in April against Israel. And that was actually designed to send a clear message to the apartheid state that if its sovereignty was breached, the retaliation going to be bigger one. And they at least symbolically had done it. But I think they have been caught off guard. Now, it seems that the Iranian calculations were wrong. They were not expecting this attack to happen, because Ismail Haniyeh and other leaders, they frequently come and go. They shuttle between Qatar and Tehran. They shuttle between Turkey and Doha. So it was unexpected. So therefore, I think in a broader picture, I think it is a very problematic part of relationship for Iran also on how to handle this situation, because it involves very prestige of Iran. If it doesn't retaliate in a manner which is meaningful, it would be perceived that Iran is a weak. It would be perceived that Israel is continuing to carry out attack on its sovereignty. So the kind of the precedent that Iran had set in April by carrying out hundreds of drone attacks inside apartheid state, I think that precedent now Iran will have to reestablish, because once again its sovereignty has been breached. Iran is in a very tough situation. What kind of decision it is going to come up with, I don't think it would immediately retaliate, but certainly in days to come, in weeks to come, it is going to retaliate in a manner. It may be symbolic, but certainly one thing has happened now. There is a public resentment all over the Muslim countries, particularly in the Arab countries. In Pakistan, as we speak, the protest against Israel has already started. So I think in a broader picture, this means more recruitment for Hamas from Palestine. It means that more political support for Hamas. What Netanyahu is not understanding that it is an ideological organization. If he through his military assassinates one leader, there would be emergence of another leader. And if their soldiers are killed, that means there will be more recruitment. Unless there is a negotiated settlement of this solution, Israel will continue to face October 7-like attacks.
So about the reactions that is coming out from especially the Muslim countries, what would you say about this? Do you think they're bubbling up? Do you think they're going to continue? Or do you think they're maybe not enough?
Well, I think for the European, the Americans, I think the small problem for them is that the negotiation process, the so-called ceasefire agreement that was expected to happen, that has been derailed. That is their lingering concern. But the bigger issue is who trusts Americans, who trusts the Europe, because they are the one who've been providing weapons. They are the one who've been providing their all kind of weaponry supports. Even as we speak, the USA has dispatched its shipments of the weapons to the Israel, and apart from that, along with the Lebanon's sea lanes, I think there are credible reports suggesting that the American naval ships are going to be there, or at least they are in the same water. So that is a threat to Hezbollah, that is a threat to Iran, that in case Israel is attacked, there could be a possible retaliation from the Americans. So Americans are the biggest part of this crisis. Americans have been politically, diplomatically, militarily supporting apartheid state, because of which we have seen this large-scale genocide in Gaza and also the political problems in the entire region.
About the problems, and we are going to continue to talk about it, but Israel also did not make an official comment on the assassination. How does this align with the historical precedents of the Mossad's involvement in the high-profile killings, and what can we infer about Israel's current counter-terrorism strategy?
Well, Israel, right from the day one, has been assassinating Iranian scientists and other important officials, and they never accepted it that they were behind it. But it was quite obvious, and I think the similar policy has been adopted previously, at least in Lebanon, when the Hezbollah leaders were killed, and when Hamas leader, the second in command, was assassinated in Beirut. But now we have lately seen that yesterday, when there was an attack on the senior leadership of Hezbollah, now we have heard that Israel has conceded it. But in case of Ismail Haniyeh, I don't think they will concede to this immediately. Maybe it is because of political reasons, but it is quite obvious. It is quite obvious they are celebrating his assassination, but obviously they are going to face the music. It is a simply matter of time. But in a broader picture, I think my understanding of the situation is that Netanyahu wants to linger on this war at least until there are US presidential elections. He's expecting that Donald Trump would win the elections. And with the Donald Trump, Netanyahu has a personal relationship, and Donald Trump previously played havoc with the Palestinian cause by shifting its embassy from Tel Aviv to the Jerusalem, which is a disputed territory, and also he supported so-called Abraham Accord, whereby he pressurized many Arab countries and other Muslim countries to recognize apartheid state without actually resolving the Palestinian issue. That was a departure from the two-state solution. So in that context, I think Netanyahu is pursuing a very stinky policy whereby he's playing with the lives of the people in Palestine, and simply he doesn't, he's the least concerned about 40,000 people have been killed so far. Nearly 100,000 people have been injured. They've been mined. They are disabled. 80% housing structure in Gaza has been destroyed. And those poor Palestinians who had rebuilt their houses, it was a kind of a makeshift arrangement. In Khan Yunis, they've been destroyed again. Entire Gaza was made a kind of it's a safe zone. They said this particular area is a safe zone. Go there. And when the Palestinians reached there, there was attack from the Israeli military. That indicates that, as a matter of fact, apartheid state is pursuing a policy whereby it wants to depopulate Gaza, because they know as long as Palestinians are there in Gaza, they will continue to retaliate, they will continue to attack inside the apartheid state to secure the freedom. Now, they are very cruel. They don't consider Palestinian, or maybe in many, by the way, in many cases, also many other ethnic groups elsewhere outside Palestine as human beings. They consider them as a subhuman being. So treating them badly, inhumanly, is a part and parcel of their doctrine. And what is happening right now in West Bank, and particularly in Gaza, that only shows that Israel is pursuing a very, very brutal, cruel policy to annihilate the Palestinian population. But in a broader picture, let me tell you, Israel may win this war in the short term, but in the long run, it would never be able to win it, because Israel is a fighting with an ideology, and that ideology is Islam, which Hamas and other militant groups pursue, and they would never surrender. Even if they kill them in hundreds of thousands, Hamas would recruit more people. They would carry out more attacks. That may not be very different to October 7th. So as long as there is no two-state solution, at least two-state solution, I don't think this conflict is going to end. During last 20 years, the 3 to 4 wars have happened between Hamas and the apartheid state. And Israel has been in a trouble. They always think that there will be attack from Hamas, from other militant groups. So unless there is a solution, this problem will continue. But the problem with Netanyahu is that for the last 25 years, he has pursued a very expansionist agenda, whereby he wants to basically eliminate all resistant groups and make Palestinian population to be subservient and force them to leave rest of the parts of the occupied Palestinian territories, like from the West Bank, like in Gaza. He wants to push them to Egypt from Gaza, and from West Bank to the Jordan. So it's an expansionist agenda, and those Arab countries who have been hands in glove with the apartheid state behind the scene, they don't know that they will be the next target.
Well, Jawad, actually what you said about the fighting with the ideology thing is quite important in my opinion, because the situation that unfolds when one fights with an ideology is that you cannot beat it up properly ever, because if someone dies, someone is going to replace them. So what do you think that is, how is this going to be in Hamas? Do you think they're probably not going to withdraw, but take it as a martyrdom and continue even more with the heightened feelings? Would you consider that?
I agree with you. The point is that during last 3 to 4 wars, we have seen that there was a new younger generation which Hamas had recruited. And their close family members, their parents, their brothers, their sisters, they were killed by Israeli airstrikes. So they decided to join Hamas. So again, now the scale of the killing, it is a massacre of the Palestinians, is a far bigger, which means that more and more people will join Hamas and other militant groups, and there would be, it may be a headless movement, or at least if the leadership is supposedly, if that is eliminated, which I don't think would be the case, then the problem and the resistance against the apartheid state is not going to end. There would not be any let up. And he thinks that he's going to eliminate Hamas. There is international consensus as we speak now that you cannot eliminate an ideology. You will have to negotiate. And Netanyahu is not willing to negotiate. Whatever this so-called symbolic negotiations, these ceasefire agreements, all this was a nonsense because parallelly he was pursuing an agenda. Netanyahu knew that only way to derail this so-called peace process, negotiating process, was to carry out an assassination attack on the top leadership of the Hamas. They have done it, and effectively they have derailed the negotiation process. So I think even once this war is over, I think Israel should get ready itself to face another war. This is not going to end. And people in the apartheid state, they are very scared. Hundreds of thousands of people from Israel have already migrated to the Europe. They are scared. There has been many attacks, particularly in the northern part of Israel. Hundreds of thousands of people from that part have left Israel, and that means its economy is going to come under strain. So in years to come, in decades to come, I think what is happening right now, it does not bode well. And also the people in the world, the public opinion all over the world has changed now. They believe that Netanyahu in the apartheid state is not very different to the Hitler, as Turkish president have repeatedly pointed out that it is a fascist state, it is a pursuing Hitler's agenda, and there has to be a collective response. So I think, as I've been saying right from the day one, my analysis, unless there is some kind of a genuine military deterrence, unless there is some kind of at least economic deterrence from the Muslim countries, Netanyahu is going to he will continue to annihilate the Palestinians everywhere, wherever they are.
Well, I think your statement was important when you compared the Hitler regime with the Israeli regime, which is quite interesting, isn't it? I mean, I know that the statements were coming from Turkey as well. We've been talking about it. We've been talking about this correlation as well. But with the lights of the assassination and everything, and the things that is happening in Gaza in the humanitarian crisis way, how would you consider that so-called this Israeli state is not only, doesn't represent all the Jews, but they are claiming to be the Jews who were killed by the German Nazi state. So how do you think, and what kind of mind that does this when you were killed in the massacres, you were killed in a genocide as Jews? You do the same for another nation, another religion, once again, and you become your killer in one way or another. How do you evaluate this situation?
That's a very important question. I think Zionism did not start off 150 years ago. No. It started off at least 1,000 years ago. That mindset has been there within the Jewish community. We don't believe everybody. But why the people who had a Zionist mindset, they created condition in different European countries and elsewhere in the world. As a result of which, at least from the 40 countries during last 1,000 years, Jews were forced to leave those countries. What was the reason? I think this requires an academic study. What is the reason? Why every country turns against them? This is a bigger problem because that Zionist mindset has been there within the Jewish community, and they need to clean it up. They have not been able to do it. Now, it has been the fault of few, a limited organization. The entire Jewish community had to suffer. We have seen in the World War II. What Hitler did cannot be justified. But what Netanyahu and Israel has been doing for decades with the people of Palestine, it looks like it is a sadistic response. Now there has to be difference between anti-Semitism and what Israel has been doing. So whatever the crimes, cruelties Israel has been committing upon the people in Gaza. We have witnessed that Israel's propaganda line is just one thing. It is anti-Semitic. You can't criticize Israel because it is anti-Semitic. Whatever happened in 1948, you are doing the exactly same thing with the Palestinian people. It is a genocide. It is a Holocaust, because now the Western media is not painting that picture. It is unimaginable that the 4% population of Gaza has been disabled. 40 to 50,000 people have been killed. It's a carpet bombing. And nobody looks at it. The world is silent about it. Let's compare it with what is happening in the Ukraine. 10 to 12,000 people have been killed during last 2 years. Around 40,000, 50,000 people have been injured. And what is the duration? 2 years. We have here 9 to 10 months. 40,000 people have been killed. Hundreds of members of the medical staff have been killed. 150 journalists have been killed. They have not spared the UN. More than 150 members of the UN have been killed. Nobody is going to challenge Netanyahu. Look at the state of fear in the world. President Putin, the Russian president, is a war criminal from West's perspective, whose scale of war is very limited, and it is a legitimate state. But Netanyahu, if he is declared by the international court as a war criminal, the Americans simply don't accept it, and they are threatening to sanction the judges. So this is the height of hypocrisy. I think what West has done over the period of time, they have institutionalized the double standards. They have institutionalized the hypocrisy. They have been providing freedom of association to their own people. But when it comes to the world outside, particularly Muslims, they've been getting them killed directly and through the apartheid state of Israel. They don't have any values. They don't have any moral conduct. It is basically the same old ancient principle. Might is right. Israel is pursuing only that principle, might is right. And Netanyahu has been saying in the past that it has a military power. He would dictate his terms. Now, under so-called Abraham Accord, many Arab countries, they recognized Israel. Actually, they did not recognize Israel. They recognized the apartheid structure. They recognized that the killing of the Palestinian is a justified. They had given the right to the apartheid state to kill and annihilate Palestinian population. They don't understand that their so-called narrow national interest is playing havoc with the Palestinian people. And that is going to be the next agenda of the Netanyahu when Donald Trump, if Donald Trump comes into power.
It is a quite interesting journey that unfolds every day, and every day we are receiving new information, new happenings, new situations, and it gets harder to unfold this conflict because it gets tied down every day. I always say that hopefully it unfolds, but it doesn't seem so. Thank you so much, Javed, for joining us here on A News once again in this important event. I think your statements were really insightful. Thank you so much for sparing your time.
Thank you.
Now let's continue with our news. Hamas political
The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point, and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.